Well, folks, today we're going to look at, for Transformers Week, Beast Wars Ultra Class Megatron. Now, I actually already looked at this for my main channel, but I'm re-reviewing it for Herotaku's Transformers Month. And because the almighty overlords above me have ordered me to, so here we go. Now, in case you didn't know, in this iteration, Megatron is a giant purple T-Rex. Just don't call him Barney. Now, this T-Rex isn't entirely accurate to the show. In fact, we wouldn't really get an accurate T-Rex till I think about 2007. But regardless, this mold actually does look quite a bit like Megatron. He is a mostly purple T-Rex with some green, which, once again, isn't wholly accurate, but hey, whatever. As well as having very nice red eyes, when I think the actual T-Rex had... Actually, no, wait, it did have red eyes. Oh, well, there you go. I remember things every day. So in the end, it does look a T-Rex with a bit of a tire there, but hey, why not? As well as obviously some obvious panel lines, but hey, when it came to Beast Wars, they were mostly shell formers, so you can't win them all. Now, as for play in Beast Mode, well, you can open his mouth by tilting back his head, which actually reveals his, well, very horribly engorged tongue. Now, this is actually a water squirting gimmick where you can actually remove his throat and his tongue comes out, fill it with water, and it'll actually squirt when you open it. Kind of like little laser blasts, like in the show. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing that these days, because, well, you know, corrosion and such. But I also know that this whole tongue assemblage is actually very commonly missing among loose specimens, so it's good to know I've still got it. Another commonly missing thing is this little chest panel for some odd reason. Now, articulation, obviously you can move his head, you can move his little tiny arms, which we now know are far stronger than we originally thought. Yay for science marching on. You can move his knees, you can move his toes a bit. And his tail is totally non-articulated, because it's one, you know, more or less solid piece. So it doesn't have a whole lot of play in T-Rex mode. Mind you, he does what you really would need a T-Rex to do. So now in robot mode, Megatron, while not entirely accurate to his cartoon model, it all more or less gets the job done. He does have some T-Rex back kibble. One of his hands is in fact a giant T-Rex head. That may or may not be sentient on its own. We're not entirely sure about that. Yay for things that the writers probably never thought of. Of course, he does have the other hand, which is, oddly enough, because in the show, this was kind of a gauntlet weapon that shot missiles, but in the toy, it's actually his entire arm. And it actually has this very interesting, well, I would say ratcheting gimmick, where you press this button down and it goes forward, and you pull it back and it goes out. Now, unfortunately, this doesn't really work terribly well. I mean, it does work, but I just like manipulating it by hand, just because you get that kind of pincer gimmick. So yeah, you can use it as a rocket launcher, you can use it as a pincer, really, what have you. It'd be nice if he actually stayed clipped into his back. Unfortunately, like most early to, well, mid-Beast Wars toys, Megatron has that unfortunate mutant head gimmick, where the gimmick was they'd have two different heads, one kind of battle mask head, and then a normal robot mode head. Obviously, here's Megatron with his, well, mutated head, and I really don't know what to call it. It's kind of Saurian, but it's, yeah, whatever. Anyways, you just easily split it open, and boom! There's his far more accurate robot head. Actually even has that scowl. It's actually quite well done. It's funny, because the mutant head gimmick would actually later be gotten rid of with later releases, such as the Beast Wars 10th anniversary. But oddly enough, it was added back in later, so I really don't know what to say about it. Articulation-wise, Megatron in robot mode actually isn't a slouch. Obviously, you can rotate his shoulders, both of them. They're on a ratcheted joint, which isn't too bad. Though one problem I have is his body keeps getting unclipped from his back, which is unfortunate. Obviously, you have, well, that articulation, so robots, yeah. This side is a little more restricted, but you still can turn it. And same thing with the T-Rex head. You can open it up, which is always good. There is a waist joint here, which on mine is actually getting looser, so it may or may not be a good thing. Obviously a knee joint. And even a little heel spur back there that you can maneuver to get him in just the right spot. So in all, oh, and obviously he has a neck joint, so. In all, the articulation is actually quite good for a robot mode. As I said, unfortunately, one issue I have with my Megatron is he tends to become unclipped from his back here quite easily. I don't know if that's really all of them or if it's just mine because of how old it is, but it's an issue to note. And of course, one last gimmick is mounted in these very large, round, well, kind of shank I really don't know what to call them, are actually hook-shaped missile launchers. You can see there, and here's what they look like. Now, I'm actually missing one of these, so this Megatron is actually not complete, but he is, well, near complete, so yeah. So that's the verdict on Beast Wars Ultra Class Megatron. Well, I gotta say, he actually hits it in both modes pretty well. I mean, he is a purple T-Rex, which is a bit odd, but he actually really hits the T-Rex mode pretty well. You really see almost next to no robot mode kibble, exception of some parts of the legs. That's ultimately unavoidable. And in robot mode, he actually looks quite good. He has pretty damn good articulation. He actually still retains the head squirting gimmick. He gets a new one with the pincer tail, even though I don't think it works that well. He still has the mutant head gimmick, which I hate, and he also has the anchor missiles in his hip shank launcher things. So in the end, he is actually laden with some pretty nifty gimmicks, so he actually has quite a bit of playstyle. Unfortunately, like I've said, mine doesn't like to clip into the back a whole lot, and it likes to come out on a whim, so again, that's an issue to note that may or may not plague your Megatrons, but ultimately, I would very highly recommend the Ultra Class Megatron, especially given the problems that the Transmetal Megatron has, at least when it comes to the American release. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, folks. Tune in tomorrow when Soundout takes a look at Depth Charge. See you around.